staying just because you're scared to leave isn't the same thing as choosing the relationship. If your list of reasons why you genuinely want this relationship is pretty much empty, but your list of things you're afraid will happen if the relationship ends is full, you're not choosing the relationship, you're choosing to avoid the things you're afraid of. And the truth is, if you continue that way, you will prolong suffering for both you and your partner. You have to make a choice. You either have to lean in and try to find some reason to stay that doesn't include your fears of leaving, or if it's really bad, you have to face those fears and choose to leave. But here's the thing, I know it's not always just that black and white, whether you stay or whether you leave. And so this video is gonna break down some of the nuance to help you make that decision from a place of clarity and wisdom. The number one mistake people make when they're trying to decide whether they should stay or whether they should leave is that they focus so much on their partner. They're looking at their partner's behavior, trying to judge whether it's bad enough to leave or if it's not that bad and I should stay. When in reality, the first thing you need to focus on, whether you're deciding to stay or leave, is just focusing on yourself. Because maybe there's underlying fears, for example, the fear of abandonment, that's keeping you in the relationship when clearly you should leave. But you've got this underlying fear that people are gonna leave you, and if people do leave you, then you'll never find somebody else. And that's the real reason you're staying. So focusing on you and healing that would probably give you the clarity that you need to then get out. Or maybe there's underlying patterns that are leading to your participation in some sort of unhealthy dynamic. Maybe there's like a conflict dynamic that keeps playing out and you're not fully aware of or understanding your part in that dynamic. And I say your part because obviously your partner is going to have their part. I'm not saying it's all on you, but if you do contribute, and you can change your part of that pattern or part of that cycle, and that's enough to get the relationship moving in the right direction, then heck yeah, that's awesome. That's where we want to start. So let me tell you a story to illustrate this. Like I said, I was engaged. I was in this relationship, and quite frankly, it was not a good relationship. But I stayed and I stayed and I stayed and I stayed. We broke up, got back together, broke up, got back together. And each time it was just like a repeat of the same song. You know, it's the broken record. It just skips back to the same song over and over again. And nothing was changing. That in itself should have been a clear sign to me that this isn't going to work out. But I stayed. And you know why I stayed? Because kind of the same thing I was just saying. I had underlying fears. Fears of not being good enough. Fears of abandonment. Fears of rejection. Fears that I wouldn't find somebody else. I truly didn't have a sense of security and self-worth within me that gave me the self-respect, the clarity, and the confidence to leave. And so I waited and I waited and I waited until the relationship got so bad that I was forced out, where there was no more choice involved. No more choice looked like one final horrible argument in a parking lot in front of an IKEA. And then days later, I got a notice delivered to me by a police officer in hand that I was being taken to court by this girl who I thought that I was going to marry. The bridge had been burnt. You're probably like, what in the world could she have taken you to court for? Well, it's another story for another day. But I'm sitting there in a courtroom. There's no way of making this right. All of the hurt feelings, all of the swear words, all of the yelling, all of it had been done, and there was no repair possible. And so the house had been burnt down, and so we could never go back. That's a horrible way to end a relationship, just so you know. I don't want you to have to wait and to stay until the house has been burnt down. I want you to be able to leave more peacefully if that's what you need to do. So the first point of this entire video, it might be the most important point, is focus on you first, and specifically focus on becoming secure. As I explain this, it's going to be completely clear as to why becoming secure is the most important and powerful thing you can do when you're trying to decide if you should stay or if you should leave. So what does it mean to become secure? Well, essentially it's decreasing certain characteristics in yourself and increasing certain characteristics simultaneously. So if you become secure, you're decreasing those things that are on the column on the left-hand side, which is you're decreasing things like fears of abandonment, fears of rejection, fears of not being chosen, decreasing the I'm not good enough story. Maybe you have a belief that you're not good enough, or there's some challenges around your self-worth, or you're just afraid that people will see you as not good enough. And you're decreasing codependency. Codependency is a fancy word for the description of somebody who can't find peace on their own. It's like all of their happiness, all of their peace, their mood is fully dependent on their partner. If their partner is showing them signs of love and acceptance and they're happy, then you're also happy. But if something's off with your partner, then your whole world is falling apart. That's codependency. So you want to decrease those things and increase self-worth, self-trust, confidence, peace, and self-respect. A person who is secure has all of those attributes, and the attributes in the decrease column are much smaller. Does it mean they're completely annihilated? No. I think at every point in our lives, we're going to have some of those fears creep up, and we're going to have a bit of codependency, or we're going to wonder if we're enough at times. But generally speaking, a person who's secure doesn't deal with those, and they feel a lot more self-worth, self-trust, confidence, peace, self-respect. And I'm going to read off some of the things that change when you become secure. And as I read them, we're going to clearly tie this back to the decision of whether you should stay or whether you should go. So imagine this. You become secure, and what happens for you is that you start asking for what you need directly from your partner in your relationship. You set boundaries. You do those two things instead of maybe people pleasing or criticizing them and getting frustrated or complaining. And when you do that, you influence the relationship for healthier dynamics, right? You're setting boundaries and you're holding those boundaries. And sometimes that's enough. If they can't keep the boundary, then obviously this isn't a good relationship for you. If previously, instead of asking for what you need, you're, people pleasing and hiding all of your needs, and yet you feel like you're not getting what you need out of this relationship, well, maybe the answer isn't to leave. Maybe the answer is just to start voicing what you're needing instead of people pleasing all the time, and you'd feel more satisfied with the relationship between you and your partner. If you stop criticizing or complaining when you're not getting what you need, then you're probably going to have a lot less conflict. They're not going to get defensive or shut down. And so you can see that asking for what you need and just setting boundaries eliminates all sorts of risk factors and gives you clarity on what you should really do in the relationship. If you're doing those things and they're still not responding in a healthy way, you're still not getting what you need out of the relationship, then you have more clarity that this might not be for you. But if you make those changes and it increases the connection and it makes things better, then okay, the relationship is starting to look like it might be worth staying for. This is the same theme. As we go through all these bullet points, I want you to listen for how I either increase self-respect, boundaries, I'm showing up in a more healthy way, and that creates positive change for the relationship, or I do those same healthy things and it doesn't work. That's the discernment that you need. When it's working, cool, we might want to stay. When it's not working, it's starting to look like we might want to leave. So here's other examples of what happens when you become secure. You stay more grounded, making it easier to navigate conflict in difficult situations. You have a deep self-respect that will help you discern if this relationship is right for you or not. Oh, I love that one, right? You're just more tuned into yourself. You're trusting yourself and your own decision making. You're no longer projecting your fears of abandonment onto your partner, maybe demanding things from them that they can't give to you. We already kind of hinted at this, but the benefits of becoming secure are, it's kind of like an elimination diet. You eliminate one factor that could be leading to the failure of the relationship, right? Like, so people pleasing, that could be leading to the failure. Or being overcritical, that could be leading to the failure. Projecting your abandonment onto your partner, that could be leading to it. And if you eliminate all those things and it's still not working, then obviously you're going to have more clarity that this isn't for you. You just increase your odds of this relationship working out, because if you make healthy changes, and obviously it's not fully up to you, your partner has to be willing to participate, but maybe you making those changes first is enough to get the momentum going. They start to get on board. It influences them to show up in a more healthy way for you as well. Then awesome. Maybe that's all it needed. You needed to start the momentum. And I know, here's the thing. I know that's not very fair, right? It's like, why do I have to start things? And the real question you need to ask yourself is not, is this fair? I think over a long period of time, you got to consider fairness. But in the short term, I would rather consider, you know what? I'm going to trade fairness for success of this relationship. If in the short term I can sacrifice a bit and I can make it not so fair, a little bit unbalanced, but I'm willing to lead out first and do the healthy thing first, right? Like maybe in conflict, you get critical and they shut down. Instead of getting critical, you're like, you know what? I'm going to gently, openly ask for what I need and invite them to participate. And that will probably influence them to be a lot less defensive or shut down. Cool. You just influence the dynamic in a healthy way. They still have the responsibility of showing up for you in an equally healthy way. You're not negating that responsibility, but maybe you're just the one that leads. And here's one of the most important benefits of becoming secure and how it's going to help you decide whether you should stay or go, is that if the relationship ends, if you're secure, you're going to know deep down in your bones that you're going to be okay. And because you're much more secure, you're way more likely to find a better relationship that's better for you. How nice would it be to make this decision of whether you should stay or go from that place of confidence, knowing that no matter what, you're going to be okay? It removes all the fear from the decision making and helps you focus on what really matters. Okay, so point number one is that the most important thing you can do right now as your foundation is to become more securely attached. Most likely, if you're watching this video, you probably found me because I help people go from anxiously attached to secure. And so I'm going to guess you probably have a bit more of an anxious attachment style. And by the way, before we go on to the non-negotiables list, because I'm going to give you a list of things that are just straight up non-negotiables. If you see them in your relationship, it's pretty much time to leave. The evidence behind discernment counseling does not recommend that you stay in a relationship if you see these things. But before we go there, I have to say, if you have this goal of becoming securely attached, you want that transformation that we just talked about, what I would do is scroll down to the description of this video and tap the link that allows you to book a call with a member of my team. We have what's called the Secure Self Club. We help people go from anxiously attached to secure in just a matter of months. And if by the end of the program, we haven't successfully helped you get there, then we give you your money back. And guess how many times we've given people their money back? 0. Not because we're sticklers, but because we're successful at helping people go from anxious to secure. So if you want to become securely attached in just a matter of months, go ahead and go to the description of this video, click the link that says book a call with a member of my team. On that call, what we'll do is we'll clarify your goals. We'll make sure that we're the right people to help you, because you don't have a perfect track record like we do with no refunds by bringing the wrong people into the program. We want to really make sure it's a good fit before we actually invite you to join. And that's what the purpose of the call is all about. Okay, let's jump into the non-negotiables. Remember that old relationship that I was talking about? One of the things that was happening in that relationship, I would consider a non-negotiable. I was being isolated from my friends and my family. She had some particular fears around like fidelity and abandonment and all sorts of things. I think it came from a wounded place. It wasn't a malicious place, but her fears and her wounding projected onto me made it so that I had to limit certain things that I was doing. I was highly isolated from my friendships. I never saw any of my friends, couldn't do anything social. If there was a girl there, another woman there who was around the same age, and especially if she was somewhat attractive on any scale, then I would be in big trouble. It would be a bad situation. And so I was slowly isolated out of friendships and even certain family activities. I was isolated from being able to share with my family what was really going on in the relationship because she was afraid of how it would make her look. To me, that's a non-negotiable. That's a red flag. That's something that has to change in the relationship or else it's over. That cannot be sustained over a long period of time. And heck, I don't think it can really be sustained over a short period of time either. So that's one example of the non-negotiables. I'm going to give you a full list right now. And again, these are based on evidence-based practices of discernment counseling. They do not recommend that you continue a relationship if any of these things are present. Number 1, ongoing abuse of any kind. Number 2, an active addiction with refusal to seek treatment. Number 3, repeated infidelity with no transparency or attempts for repair. Number 4, chronic dishonesty about really anything. Number 5, lack of responsibility for harm that has been caused. If they can't take accountability, they're not going to change. Number 6, isolating you from your loved ones. If you clearly have a healthy relationship with your friends or your family and it doesn't pose a threat to the relationship, then you should be able to see those people. So those are the non-negotiables clarified by discernment counseling. Speaking of discernment counseling, at the end of this video, I'm going to give you one question that's recommended by discernment experts that you should be asking yourself to get the clarity you need. This next section about good inputs versus bad outputs is deeply important. You're going to be living ignorantly in a toxic relationship forever unless you internalize this concept. One sign that it's time for you to leave a relationship is when you repeatedly show up for your partner in a healthy way and they respond to that in a hurtful way. You calmly try to talk about concerns and the conversation immediately shifts into blaming you or just deflection. You apologize sincerely and it's used as proof that everything is your fault. Or without judgment, you share how they hurt you and they spiral into shame instead of taking accountability. I'm a guy with conservative family values, and I'm a huge advocate for doing everything possible to save a relationship. But when everything you can possibly do isn't enough, staying is no longer an act of commitment, it's an act of self-abandonment. I always say that good inputs should lead to good outputs. If your good input in any facet of life leads to bad outputs, whether you're at work and you're showing up in the best way possible and nothing's really working, if you're trying a business and you're clearly not getting a response from your customers that anything you're doing is helpful, if you're in a relationship where you're showing up in the most healthy, loving way possible and they are not willing to change or they're not budging on how they're showing up for you, then yeah, that's not a good sign. Here's the disclaimer to this. I'm not saying that you need to become perfect. Even when we were talking about becoming secure, I don't think you need to become perfectly secure to determine whether you should stay or go, right? Some of your input is not going to be good because you're a human being. It's going to be a little bit off. But if you're in a situation where your absolute best effort isn't enough to influence them to participate in the relationship, to show up for you, then that might be the sign that it's time to leave. My hope is that it doesn't go there. I hope your good inputs influence the relationship for a positive outcome. One more point before we get to that final discernment question that I've been promising you. So discernment counseling looks at 3 different factors that help you to know whether your partner or even yourself is really willing and able to make this relationship work. Factor number 1 is openness. Are they willing to see their part in the problem? If they're not open to that, if they don't take accountability, if they don't see their part, then that's a huge red flag and you can't move on to the next 2. Number 2 is motivation. Are they willing to work on things, not just to stop a fight, like to people please you in the moment and to kind of calm you down, but really put in some effort over a long period of time. If they don't have openness, they're not going to have motivation. And if they don't have motivation, then they're definitely not going to graduate to the 3rd point, which is follow through. Does their openness and motivation lead to consistent actions? Do their words match what they do? And I'm not saying in the short term, because anybody can do it in the short term, but over a sustained period of time, are they willing to say the right things and then show up and do the right things? You have to have all 3 for a relationship to be sustainable. And here's the thing, I'm not saying that if you're missing one, immediately break up with them. That's not the answer. Sometimes openness is a doorway to motivation. And motivation, with a little bit of correction, can lead to follow through. But I will say, if one or both of you lacks openness, then the relationship's not in a place to grow. Biggest red flag in a relationship is when somebody can't see their part and they can't take accountability. Because if they can't do those 2 things, then there's no way they can possibly change. A good question to ask yourself is, has there been sustained effort or just promises made in the moments of crisis? It doesn't mean that they're going to relapse or you're going to relapse into something like conflict. All healthy relationships will have patterns of conflict, but healthy relationships specifically have patterns of repair as well. Unhealthy relationships are solely conflict with no repair. A real sign of sustainable repair is when you and them can look at one another from a lens of true empathy. If they hurt you and they come back and they take accountability and they just say, hey, I'm sorry for hurting you, that's kind of repair. But real repair is when they can listen to the pain that you experience. They can empathize with it. They can validate you. And you can actually see that it hurts them that they hurt you. If it's not painful for them to hurt you, then you know you have somebody that doesn't actually care about you deeply. And to simplify everything that we've talked about, the one discernment question that you should be asking yourself is this. And mind you, before I give you the question, this question, I don't want you to just ask it once and get like a quick answer. I want you to do that, yes, because sometimes your intuition will give you the answer that you need. But also journaling about these things, slowing down, really considering this question can be a very powerful shift for you in getting clarity, discernment on what you should do in this relationship. Number one, if nothing changes in this relationship over the next 5 years, would I be willing to stay? And number two, is there enough willingness and capacity in both partners to create a new relationship, not just restore or repair an old one? If you've gotten to the point where you're considering leaving, then most likely the relationship that you had in the first place wasn't sustainable. And so you're not just trying to restore something that was, you're trying to create a brand new relationship. And you got to decide on whether you're even willing to do that and if you think that they're willing to do that. In some circumstances, you could ask these questions together, you and your partner, and have a real honest and open discussion about what things look like for the two of you in the future. If the answer to both of these questions is yes, then great. It's a good sign that now is the time to work on your relationship, maybe with a little bit more support, more guidance and accountability. But yeah, it's looking like you could make things happen. If the answer is no to both of these questions, then the best path forward might be to end the relationship. And I say might be, and I've thrown in these caveats because at the end of the day, it's up to you. You need to be the one to decide whether you should stay or go, not let me decide, a friend decide, or some other coach or therapist decide whether you should stay or go. And that's why I started with become secure yourself. When you're secure, you're going to have the self-respect to be able to make that decision. You're going to have the confidence to know that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. You're going to show up in a new and healthy way in your relationship that might influence it for good. And if it doesn't, then you clearly have the answer that you shouldn't be staying. And if it does have to end, you're going to go into that next relationship and that next chapter of your life as a new, healthy, secure human being who's going to find a better relationship than the one you have now. And if that sounds like your goal, your next step is easy. Go to the description of this video, click the link to book a call with a member of my team. Whether it's a good fit or not, we'll figure that out on the call. Don't worry about that now. Just go book that call, even if you're remotely curious about what we can do to help you. Thank you again so much for joining me today. I love you. You have a great day, and we'll chat soon.